Now back to our sectoral review of the aviation sector. Joining us right now in the studio on the News at 10 is an aviation consultant, Mr. Tayo Ujuri. Glad to have you join us.
It's a pleasure.
Now, give us your own perspective on the impact and consequences of COVID-19 on the aviation sector in 2020.
Well, like everybody has said earlier, it's a mitigated, disastrous year for aviation. And with that, I haven't seen that. We've never seen this kind of shock to aviation since World War II. We've gone through 9/11, we've gone through SARS, we've gone through economic recession. It's never been. We've been able to bounce back within a quarter or 2 quarters after those shock. But what we've seen now is we came back and there were some incidental improvements with passenger traffic, like December, a bit of movement. But what we've really seen now is lots of loss, because let's bring that back to Nigeria, where we had the closure for about 4 months. After the reopening, we saw NSAS protests, which actually disrupted lots of travel from the center of economic commerce, which is Lagos. That really affected passenger travel. Forex actually went up, which actually affects 80% of operational costs for all domestic airlines is domiciled in Forex. So they were unable to buy Forex at competitive rates for them to meet their costs. That's why the price of tickets actually went higher than normal in the last quarter of 2020. So these are all challenges, but looking into 2021, is that going to get better? We do not see that happening.
Some people wonder if the decisions we took in 2020 could have helped us avert a lot of the losses that we suffered. What do you think?
I doubt that, because it was a global impact. It was a pandemic, and everywhere was shut down. What really made it really disastrous, and the negative impact that we've seen over and is still affecting us, is that we had lots of protocols by countries across board having their individual country protocols rather than having a layered approach, which ICAO and IATA has actually proposed. With the layered approach, it actually helps passengers travel and have one source of truth. In sense that, for example, you look at Canada, for example, has the COVID test screening as well as 14 days isolation period. If you're going, that does not augur well for leisure or business travel, and that's actually going to let the travel numbers dissipate within this year.
So how long do you think recovery would take moving into 2021? Because we're still looking at travel still being really low, and then perhaps difficulty also that they're facing in the operating capacities.
Looking at IATA numbers are looking at projecting and forecasting for about 2022. But looking at Nigeria, there are lots of underground economic drivers. We're technically in a recession. For us, aviation is a function of disposable income as well as government spending. This is not going to happen in Nigeria till third quarter. With this in place, people are not going to spend. There are not lots of trainings, there are not lots of movement until third quarter, which is where we'll now see movement, which will be about 50% of 2020 numbers, not the pre-COVID-19 numbers. So which is still very minuscule in terms of numbers.
Well, when you compare it to perhaps the COVID palliative, you look at the loans that they perhaps have access to, the budget in 2021 acting as a buffer, aren't you optimistic?
Well, we've seen second strain, and second strain is still in the air. Lots of movement. We can actually put a finger on the needle at this point. The fact that the vaccine has come, but the vaccine is not a relief. Is not even with the vaccine, we still have the increase in the rates of COVID-19 deaths and the spread. So with that, that's actually going to affect the number of people traveling and the awareness. Even though we have travel bubbles being set up, that still people are not enthused about traveling at this point. So that's going to affect, even though there's a budget for it, there's a spending for it, the people are still not gravitating towards air travel.
Even with the threat of a second wave, what do you think will happen
With the threat
aviation
of a
sector?
second wave, we're going to see low numbers because there are lots of drivers with that. People are comfortable with meetings online and using technology for lots of transactions. So we're not going to see lots of what you call visiting families and friends travel. Business travel is not going to come back soon. So that's going to actually affect numbers till third quarter. That's all the drivers that would affect aviation travel.
So still a rough and bumpy ride. We'd like to thank you so much, aviation consultant, Mr. Tayo Juri. Thank you for joining
It's
us
always
on
a
News at
pleasure.
10.